Hello, data enthusiasts. This is Chris Detzel, and
I'm Michael Burke.
welcome to Data Hurdles. Let's conquer these data hurdles together. All right, welcome to another Data Hurdles. I'm Chris Detzel, and
I'm Michael Burke. How you doing, Chris?
pretty good, man. I think we'll hit 90 degrees today, so it's gonna be nice and warm here in Dallas. So we have a special guest today. He's been on the show before. Ramon Chen. He's the Chief Product Officer at Acceldata. Ramon, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks, Mike and Chris, for having me on again.
Welcome back. We're excited to have you.
Yeah, it's been a while. Lots has happened in this fast-moving world of AI, agentic AI, and so forth. So I'm delighted to chat about that today.
Yeah, and we're excited
That's amazing.
to have you and then to talk about that. But before we get going, let's do a quick introduction. Ramon, tell us who you are again and what's been going on at Acceldata and in your world today.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I'm the Chief Product Officer at Acceldata. We have an enterprise data observability platform. The data observability is a category that when I spoke to you about a year and a bit ago was starting to get a lot of play, but it's full-blown tidal wave now in terms of people's interest and understanding at how it fits in the context of data quality, data governance, and so forth. So I'm excited to explain that to you. And Chris, as my career history involves a company that you and I both worked at, Reltio. I was the chief product officer there for many years. And I've been in the data and analytics space for about 30 years now. Got the gray hairs to prove it. So excited to talk to you today about what's happening in the world of data observability, but also this notion of agentic AI.
You're building the whole conference around that view. That's interesting.
Yeah, thanks for prompting. I'll do a lot of advertorial real quick here at the beginning. So Autonomous 25, May 20th in San Francisco, we are hosting industry leaders to talk around agentic AI and the impact of agentic data management. It's going to be a fascinating topic. Fortune 500 companies are coming to present and speak, industry leading vendors. So it's going to be a very good time. Go to the Acceldata website, acceldata.com, and you can register. And right now, for a limited time, it's completely free.
Oh, wow.
But nothing better than a free conference. I feel like conferences have gotten too expensive across
There
the
you go.
board. Anyway, so tell us a little bit more about agentic AI. I'd love to hear, what does it mean to Acceldata, and where are things going within the ecosystem of observability?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. So let's talk about data observability first, if you wouldn't mind. So data observability, I was just at Gartner Orlando a couple of weeks ago, and the notion and the understanding of data observability has just exponentially exploded. Instead of asking observability, I thought that's what Splunk or Datadog did. People know now who the players are in data observability and enterprise data observability, but more importantly, they know how it fits, right, in the data management ecosystem. Very briefly, just for the listeners who don't know, data observability is, in a word, proactive data quality as one use case, right? Being able to ensure that the data is fit for purpose. Gartner calls it a data readiness, right? Whether that's for and then the data to be fully trusted. Now, the word trust is used a lot from anything from MDM to people who manipulate and deliver data through their silo and context. But this is really about making sure that the data from the very inception, from when it enters the data supply chain, has been vetted, not just for the quality of the data, but for the accuracy and the frequency in which it's being delivered by third-party data suppliers, whether the schema has changed or not, right? And data observability are policies and rules that are enforced throughout these steps in the data supply chain so that people can have peace of mind, so that data engineers, when they are alerted of issues that could have occurred, they can resolve them quickly before their business users have problems with bad data in their business reports or in their AI downstream. So that's data observability in a nutshell.
And so with data observability, and I feel like across the board, we're hearing that the traditional way of doing observability with a Splunk or kind of this log monitoring process and writing manual rules is phasing out. At least it's beginning to phase out. What is your perspective on where things are headed? How are we going to do this differently? Data is complex. The meaning of things like quality and accuracy can vary completely from one company to another.
Exactly.
How does agentic AI help with that?
Yeah, so agentic AI as applied to data observability. So we just announced 3 weeks ago agentic data management. So agentic AI, I'm sure your viewers, you can't go anywhere without hearing about agents and agentic AI this and agentic AI that, but it's been mostly applied in the context of customer support, sales and marketing, assisting using natural language and responding with a corpus of data as if a human being would to autonomously assist, right, and help improve functions in those areas. And the productivity gains are quite well proven. The context of agentic AI in data management is very similar. So imagine, if you will, a ChatGPT or Perplexity-like interface where instead of you navigating a tool and looking at dashboards and trying to uncover where there are issues or problems, the questions you ask will dictate the answers you're given back, not just the question, but who you are and why are you asking. So the system would be aware and would be intent-based. They would know who you are, whether you're a business analyst or whether you're a data engineer, and they would infer the reason of your question and give you the data in the mode and form, whether that be a chart or a graph or a table, in the function and workflow that you would expect. So as an example, if I'm a business analyst and I ask the question, what reports have poor data quality and should I trust them? You should get that list of reports, right? But then it would prompt you with, okay, what do you want to do next? Do you want to look at a specific report and find out why it has issues? And here's the link to drill down further. And then you can ask further and further questions. If I was then a data engineer and I was asking this context, it would ask the reports, but it would immediately know, as a data engineer, I'm here to solve the problem, right? I'm here to fix it or prevent the problem. So it would immediately say, hey, do you want to add some rules and policies that could really beef up the quality of these reports? Add more checks, if you will, checks and balances. So that's when the same sort of ideas approach from business side and technical side can converge on the same corpus of data that data observability is pulled together.
And so, just so the audience gets this straight, and I get this straight too, when we talk about interacting with an LLM like that, is the assumption that we've got our data already indexed and the LLM has an understanding, this agent or agentic AI has this understanding of all the data in all of my systems. And it also has an understanding about me. So when I talk about quality and trust, is it making that decision based off of my definitions of quality and trust? Because
Absolutely.
my definitions and like an engineer's definitions might be completely different.
Exactly correct. So the first step is what data observability foundationally does, right? Together with all the other tools, right? If you've ever heard or seen Mark Beyer talk at Gartner talk about active metadata, right, as the lifeblood, right? And in fact, Gartner says that we're in the active metadata era, right? This is now the evolution of data warehouses. Now, active metadata is the lifeblood of what's feeding AI. Data observability goes around collecting active metadata and making it active across databases, across tools, and catalogs and governance tools, and assembling it all together so that you can see pipelines, you can see data flows, and then using this active metadata, derive rules and policies that you can then put into context. But that active metadata, right, much a thermometer tells the temperature, but a thermostat adjusts according to your desires and wants, right? Active metadata is that information that can be put into action. So this active metadata is the fuel that the agentic AI and agentic data management agents need as foundational, right? And that comes from both structured and unstructured data, right? Harnessing and then extracting the metadata from that. And then the use of chunking and vector and databases and so forth deals with unstructured, whereas the traditional metadata is stored in system catalogs. And as you well know, Unity catalog, Mike, right, that has all of that great information and using things like Iceberg and so forth. So once the LLM has all of this, the next step is then for it to get some metadata about the individual users that are asking the questions, right? It also needs to be able to be smart enough to say, wait, maybe I can't answer this question. Maybe the corpus of information is in another LLM, because it might be industry focused, it might be domain focused, right? Because you're using RAG and stuff and having smaller models rather than a monolith model will reduce hallucination and all sorts of stuff, as you well know. But armed with those two pieces of information, the system is continuously learning, right? So taking the information, refining the answers. So there's definitely a level of training and active learning that needs to be done to start to make it fully customizable for you, just like you use ChatGPT.
So interesting. And the question that I keep running around with, and Detzel, I know you've asked this one before, is if we have LLMs that now understand our data and understand us, what is really the gap between some of these roles going away and these agents really just starting to do these jobs? If they have that a real understanding of us and our needs and what is quality, can they start to take action? Can they be more proactive? Is that something that you're starting to see emerge in Acceldata, or is that kind of like futuristic stuff at this point?
No, I think all of the major leaders at Amazon and Salesforce have all talked about this notion of retooling and reskilling people because some of the rote tasks are going away. Interestingly enough, and I think this is still valid, a few months ago, there was a statement made by the CEO of AWS that said that there'll be no coders anymore because code is being written by these sort of agentic generative AI functions. So that's a scary thing because coders were always the safest in terms of jobs throughout my career, at least. But it's really, and then there's this whole thing where, oh, they're all going to have to become prompt engineers and all of this stuff.
I
Now, I
could
think
be
it's
a
a little
prompt
bit over.
engineer.
What's that?
I could be a prompt engineer because I
But
can
yeah,
prompt the hell
even
out of.
you can be a prompt
Well,
engineer, Chris. That's what we're
exactly.
saying. That's how easy it is.
No,
No
it's
offense.
not really easy, but
Yeah.
the point is, and I've talked to Mike and other people about this, is I can now, at the very least, without, I'm what you call a vibe coder. Yeah, vibe coder. Mike, is that what they call it? And so I can build an entire website and just clean, crisp. I can even build a generator of running kind of plans and everything else that tells you Monday through Sunday what you should run, what you shouldn't run. And people just put in their information that they want to run a 320 marathon and then gives you a plan. Boom, right there. I've already done it. And I'm like, that, I know that's simple stuff, but you know what? I know it can go deeper than that. Claude 3.7 is phenomenal. So I'm off, but the point is that it will change coding forever. If it hasn't now, it will.
Yeah, for sure. I think though that we're in this sort of, I don't want to call it Goldilocks period, but there's a period right now where it's not fully autonomous. So our conference
100%.
is called Autonomous 25, and that's a little aspirational, right? I think that human in the loop is still very important, right?
Yes.
We're not at the Terminator stage where we're all going to get eliminated.
Exactly.
And then you guys know about PDoom, the quotient PDoom, right? So if you look it up on Wikipedia, PDoom is what are the odds? Everybody has their PDoom number, right? What are the odds of agentic or AGI taking place and destroying the human population, Terminator style? So everybody's running around. I wrote a blog post about PDoom about a year ago. George Matthew at Insight Partners had a panel at Scale Up AI, which talked about it. It's super interesting. Anyway, that's the doom and gloom stuff. But the reality is humans are still required, right? There's a lot of hallucination going on. You don't want some agentic AI system to make a decision without somebody first checking on it, right? But humans can make mistakes as well. So we're in this process where people won't be completely and entirely replaced, but they will have to be better at different things. The stuff that is rote tasks that involve sort of desk checking, things that can be automated will be automated. And things that previously required 2 hours to pull together a presentation will take 15 minutes. So I see it as a
It
hyper
already does.
efficiency. Exactly, it already does. The hyper efficiency acceleration and applied to data management, that is huge because there's so much siloed data, as you well know, Chris, right? MDM deals with the siloed data that is the actual customer data and the product data. But there's siloed metadata that's not being put to good use for data management and not being used to be understanding the needs and wants and simplifying and democratizing access to critical information about the quality of data and the reliability and the trust of data. And so I think that's going to change. I think, Mike, your point about is are people going to, yeah, certain roles and responsibilities will be redirected to other tasks.
Yeah. Yeah, and the thing that's just wild to me is if I even told you 2 years ago, as somebody who's in the AI space, oh, LLMs are going to be able to label their own data and like
Yeah.
some of these new things. We just released this thing called TAO, test time adaptive
Yeah.
optimizations. Really
I saw your
wild
post
things.
about that. That was really good. Yeah.
And it's all using similar strategies with the same models, but the way that we're applying them to build on top of each other is transforming it into something new. And I think that for those of you who know about reinforcement learning, and that's learning like a baby learns how to walk is the easiest example to describe. If a model is armed with these capabilities and they're armed with the right inputs to ingest new data, there's the opportunity is unlimited as to what it could do and how it could use its own context to make decisions. And I think that's really where some of these agentic AI models we're going to see just grow and skyrocket, is because they're going to start to learn about you based off of the feedback that you provide it. They're going to start to
Exactly.
learn about you also based off of the 1,000 attributes that they have on you, on where you work and what role you're in and your experience level, and maybe every other search you've done on your intranet and on your internal portals. And that information is going to give it the context to take all of the relevant information it has across the internet or its domain of knowledge and provide back really relevant data. Almost something that is a psychic in some ways, that can understand who you are and what you're really looking for versus just the words that you're typing into the search bar, right? Or the way that you're communicating with it. And we're already starting to see this, right? We're already starting to see, Detzel and I were talking about this a couple weeks ago, is that like my version of an LLM that I use regularly on a day-to-day basis communicates differently with me than his does with him. And when you think about the context of an internal system like data observability, there's even more context. There's context that wasn't available online that now is just available to the business. And imagine how you can accelerate these systems internally by
Yeah.
using something like that.
Ramon, quickly, out of curiosity, do you guys build your own LLMs, or do you use like a Claude or ChatGPT or whatever and build it from
Yeah,
there?
so we use a whole
Curious.
host, obviously, Gemini, and we
Okay.
use OpenAI. Our goal is to be agnostic, but we will start with a foundational LLM because that's a great question, Chris, because we at Acceldata, our clientele are Global 2000, Fortune 500, right? We only work with the very largest companies in the world because they have the most challenging data problems, a variety in data environments and scale. And that's where we think our differentiation stands. There are a lot of other products out there that do data observability that are very departmental scale, single Snowflake instance. And that's not where we offer our huge value. And when you're dealing with such squirrely situations at enterprise scale, the security checks that we have to go through to support banks and telcos and life sciences companies is extreme. Everybody is scared and have their AI radar up around compliance and responsible use of AI. So inevitably, LLMs that will be used will be the choice of the customer, right? They'll have their favorite LLM. They'll want it to be within their VPC. So that's what we've architected for, and that's what we're planning for.
It's interesting because I see this as the new cloud type stuff. You have three different clouds, but you can go to all three, or a
Yeah.
company like yours or Reltia or whatever can do all three. And so you're going to have to be experts. Your company has to be experts on each LLM. Is it Gemini? Is it OpenAI? Is it Claude? Is it whatever else is out there? It's so interesting. Just the things that you guys have to go through to teach, whether it's engineers and things like that. You're going to be specialized in all of that, I think.
Yeah. That's the job, right? As a
Yeah.
platform, that's what you sign up for, right? And Mike knows full well, like Databricks is a fantastic platform. You have to be all things to everybody. It's expected, right? Yeah, I have no fear on that. My engineering team doesn't, and the company, and then Rohit, our CEO. If you want to be the platform for the enterprise for data observability, you've got to support all modes, all clouds, on-prem, hybrid, 400 petabytes, 1 terabyte, doesn't matter, scale up, scale down, multi-tenant environments, so on and so forth. So it all comes with the territory. We wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah, and the truth is, that's all, like these large enterprises, they have so many engineers that somewhere in there is an expert that if we don't build it or Acceldata doesn't build it, they're going to build it. And so you are competing, sure, against your other competitors, but you're also really competing with the engineers that can build some of this stuff and making sure that you are helping guide them on a way that's going to reduce that total cost of ownership. That's just, and I've been through this. I built my own applications when there were third-party tools out there
Yep.
because they weren't moving fast enough. And it's
Yep.
just like and then you get to this operational overhead that's not scalable. I think that's where all these applications in this space really play and provide value. Is there's so much to be done, especially on the governance and management side, where there's just 1,000 things that you didn't think about when you started that project that these commercial projects have already covered.
Yeah, the history, Mike, if you're as old as I am, you'll have seen this story before because it doesn't matter whether it's Gen AI or whether it was 4GL back in the day. There's acceleration in productivity on building applications, managing data. Every single step of the way, there's something better. And it never fails that internal IT will say, Why do I need to buy an MDM solution? I can build my own. Why do I need a data observability solution? Why do I build my own? It's not building the first iteration that's hard. You can get that up and running, but then you got to maintain it. Then you've got to, that person leaves the company, then you've got to hand over and what the heck did this person do and who's supporting it now and so on and so forth. So as with anything, build versus buy, and we'll see the same mistake, just like the stock market will crash and it will come back up again and people have bad memories. Same thing with build and buy. People will be like, yeah, I'm going to build all of this using Gen AI because I can just do it myself and GitHub and Copilot will just code it all for me. And then the uh-oh moment will come like, why do we do that again? Now I have this legacy thing that nobody wants to maintain. It's not my core competency. It's not my business. And some companies will do it themselves and then they'll go through the cycle and then they'll come back and they'll go, we'll have to replace what we have legacy. Doesn't matter if it's Gen AI, doesn't matter if it was OGL, doesn't matter if it was built in NoSQL or Hadoop. Same thing's going to happen.
Ramon, where do you think the future is headed? I know this is a hard question. We ask it to everybody these days because I think we're all floundering a bit in catching up with the day after day innovations of large language models. But where do you think we're going to be in 6 months?
I'll be back on this show and we'll be talking about something completely different. That's my prediction. But in 6 months, that is also an eternity, quite frankly, at the pace that things are moving at, right? Every single day you can pull up LinkedIn and there's going to be a new announcement. And it's not one announcement, it's like later in the afternoon, somebody else is going to make an announcement because somebody's going to feel like XYZ made an announcement. When we made the agentic data management announcement just before Gartner, I was chuckling to myself with my CMO because all of a sudden everybody had one and they were announcing it that week. And you could see the press releases that were pulled together in haste, right? Because if you're not announcing something and you're not having that vision and that direction, you're going to be left behind. So I think the pace is going to continue to change. The economics of this with DeepSeek and all of that, it's already turned itself on its ear. I think that I can't predict and I won't predict, but I feel the path that Acceldata is on and other companies that are adopting agentic AI is the way to go. How that gets received, I think there will be a little bit of a slowdown. Not everybody is comfortable letting AI do the work, right? Some people will still say, too dangerous, let's stay with the traditional for now, keep an eye on it, and then there'll be like the late adopters that are coming in. But it's a fascinating time. I'm not really answering your question directly, but I think death, taxes, and the rate of technology change, those are three certainties, right, in the world. And I'm here for it. I think it's super exciting. This is what's going to keep your podcast going here. There's always something good to talk about.
And when you look back on where we've come from in the next year, do you see any major risks with large language models, governance? We're talking mainly about observability, I know, but really around the governance of a lot of these technologies as they start to scale up and be more embedded and proactive. Are there any risks with that? Or has it weighted those to some degree? Yeah.
Yeah, we know that there are risks that not just, so there's two risks, right? The first risk is the use of AI in data management without human in the loop, fully autonomizing and taking actions without somebody governing it. That's going to be a risk, and we encourage all companies who are adopting this not to just flip the switch and walk away and go do something else. So that's number one. The second one I would say is is AI in the other areas being responsible? Are they hallucinating and taking data and delivering really bad outcomes? And so that's where AI observability is coming into play, right? So now you've got to observe the data to make sure it's trusted to feed these large language models. But then once the models start to do stuff, you've got to keep an eye on them so that they don't misbehave and basically hallucinate and do different things. So the natural extension of data observability is AI observability. I think the two are synergistic. I think just as Databricks is the data and AI conference, data and AI observability is the same one and continuum in terms of an umbrella.
Really interesting.
I kind of
Detzel,
have a
do you have any
thought.
other questions to follow up with? Yeah, go for it.
Just a quick thought, and it's not relating to everything that we were talking about, but it's mostly around hallucinations. And one of the things that I start thinking about is these AI models are supposed to learn from other things, and we give it that, I think they give it some flexibility to hallucinate, right? And so as these things become smarter, what we think might be hallucinations might be actually what it learned and maybe things that we should take into account. I'm not saying right now because it's it's better actually than it has been over a year, but it still does hallucinate. But I think we really have to think about that. Is it really hallucinating in the future, or is it that we just didn't know because it's way more smarter than we are at some point? It's an interesting thought. It was just a philosophical thought that I had about that. And it was like, we wanted
Yeah,
to, right?
for sure. You must have been watching the Matrix movie or Inception over the weekend, right? What's reality? Is
I
what the
completely changed this entire conversation, but sorry.
Yeah, is what the LLMs say real, and you're just stuck in the past, right?
Yeah,
And you just
exactly.
you have your way of thinking of things because that's traditional, and the LLM is coming with an alternate view, and you deny or do not believe that's what it is. There are certain things that are a little bit black and white in terms of, hey, this field is null, not null, right? There's some things that are just clear where based on facts and data, it comes to a conclusion. Typically hallucinations that, well, at least where I've seen it, is not, because there's no ego in the LLM, right? People always say LLMs are like humans. They don't want to not be able to give you an answer, right? So they're going to spew out some garbage just because they're expected to give you an answer. And there's some truth to that, right? But you can tune it. You can say, look, if you're not sure, don't give me an answer. You can,
Yeah.
or fact check it, right? That's why all of these Perplexity, ChatGPT, they all have attribution now, right? And links. This is where I got this piece of information from. So you have attribution from source. And that I think is highly valuable because that engenders trust in the responses. And the same thing will happen, right, in agentic data management. When somebody says, which are the, and go back to my original example, which are the reports that are the least data, poorest data quality, it'll spit out maybe a table of 10, and then it'll say, I figured this out through this. If you want to know, check my work. Just like when you were in fifth grade or sixth grade math and you had to do an equation, you had to do a QED at the end to prove your theorem. So more and more, that's what's going to happen. So hallucinations are essentially a combination of facts that were either misordered or incorrectly applied together. But if you can see the origination of the sources and you can see how the conclusion was drawn, you can gradually train and correct that. And the arbiter of what is a hallucination is, yeah, it's going to be different for different people and different contexts.
And
Ramon, that was
Detzel,
a
just
great answer, by the way, because that helps me a lot. What I just learned too is once it's all the agentic thing that you're building, it's going to save a ton of time just because it's going to show you where it got the data. If I'm sitting there having to go find it myself and do all these, it's
Oh,
going to
yeah.
take me forever to do that. Now it's just boom, within like 20 seconds, it's there. Here's the link. Read it if you like, or just let it give you a summary.
Yeah.
Anyways, go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to say, though, to add to your point, there are really interesting things that have happened in the past, like especially around neural networks and how information is communicated between one system and another. So a really good
Yeah.
example of this is Google Translate. And Google Translate, when you were translating between languages, and I forget the neural network's name that they used, but the neural machine translation, the layers of that translation between, let's say, Spanish and English, actually be turned into its own language that was more optimized
Yep.
than text just to translate between two
Yeah.
systems.
Yeah.
And I think that as we start to really evolve in the large language model space, you'll still have your standard text outputs. But when you start communicating from model to model, there will be new systems that emerge that are going to be much more optimized than
Yeah.
just like a Latin character base. And you're going to
Yeah.
start to see that for
You
sure.
were talking about
Have you
that like a
seen
year
that?
ago, Mike. Anyways, go ahead. Like when these
Yeah.
models start
Have you
talking to each
seen
other.
that? Have you seen that video that's going around YouTube and the internet where somebody is calling up to get travel agents advice and the model is talking to another model and they figure out that they're both models and then they go into gibber mode? Have you seen
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Okay.
pretty
Well,
amazing.
yeah. So then all of a sudden it's just blah, 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 communicating. So that's then they're not speaking anymore, but you can see the printed text. And yeah, for sure, it's a communication protocol like anything else that's going to occur. It's going to happen. These things are going to evolve very quickly. I think that this is a very fun time. If you're not happy or interested in this era, I seriously think you need to be examined because this is as much fun,
It's
even the word hallucination, this is as much fun as you can have without actually getting hallucination with LSD and smoking marijuana, quite frankly. This is all technical fun and it's one big party.
I think it's amazing. I think, the time we're in is just unprecedented. It's nothing that I thought it could be. And I do so much more with that technology than I could before and a lot quicker.
Yeah.
Even at work, hey, you need this PowerPoint and you need some big long buzzwords about some things.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a pretty cool time and the things that it can do. So Ramon, this has been really great. Really appreciate you
Well,
coming
thank you.
on.
Thank you for having me on.
We'll definitely do it again. But Mike, did you have anything else before I?
But thank you, Chris, and thank you, Ramon. This is amazing. For our listeners on the call, don't forget to rate and review us. I'm Michael Burke.
And I'm Chris Detzel.
And I'm Ramon Chen, Autonomous 25, May 20th. Be
There we
there. It's gonna be it's gonna be a rollicking good time.
You always put on a good event, Ramon. So
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
that was good. Thank you so much.